special agenda meeting of the RSU14 Board of Directors. It is now 6:30. Mr. Superintendent, could I have a roll call?
Sure can. Kate Bricks. Eric Colby.
Present.
Jennifer Fleck.
Here.
Diana Freusland.
Here.
Marge Cavoni.
Here.
Pete Pencil. Here. Jen Moore. Don Dillon. Jerry Keane Dwyer.
Here.
Diana Maciel.
Here. Okay, if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there are no adjustments to the agenda. I will open it up for public participation. If anybody has anything that is not on the agenda that they would like to come up and speak about. Seeing nobody, I will close public participation. First on our agenda is a motion to approve expenditure. This motion is to allow for the permitting cost. Are you all set, Bill? Do you want to give a little, and I'll take a motion while he's walking up here?
I move to approve the expenditure of up to $32,000 with Fay, Spofford, and Thorndike for the engineering and DEP permit application for the Raymond Elementary School playground expansion.
Second.
We have a first and a second, all in, oh, sorry, okay. Now we'll hear a little, this is a follow-up, Bill, this is a follow-up from our last
Upside
meeting,
down.
correctly?
Okay. I have with me Dwight Anderson, engineer we work with from FSD, just so you could ask any questions directly. So we have that. So I have a larger image of the drawing that I sent to you our last meeting, just so that again we could reference it if you had any questions as we went through. At this point in time, you had two questions you asked us to answer. One was how long the permit would be good for. I believe that communication on the board packet, is everyone good with the answers received on that? Was there any questions for Dwight? Because he is the one who researched that.
Can we just say it to share it with the public?
Yeah, the permit, they used to only be good for just a year or 2 years. So now they're really good for 4 years. You can have a substantial start in 4 years, and you have to get completion in 7. So it's certainly a plus for this project, given the time frame.
So it's 4 years to start and completion within 7.
The other question was on the spending schedule, and we have copies we brought with us. I think you have it in board packet too as well, but I wasn't sure. So we doesn't have the spending schedule for the show. Does anyone need a copy of that? So what you get for a spending schedule is basically the entire cost of the for the project. So $13,000 for the permit application and engineering. And then this shows costs beyond that, the bidding and the project and the actual construction. So the number that you see there total is more than the 32 we talked about, but that's the entire life of the project. We're only asking for the 32 at this time. The remaining funds would be something that you'd have to vote on if you chose to proceed with the project. But wanted you to be aware of what the total cost would be. And I think it's really important that we have construction management because, again, this is a area that is, very much regulated with being close to the watershed. So we want to make sure that, I'm sure the guys do a great job, but we also, they may have questions, so we can quickly answer them and keep the project moving ahead. So that's why those funds are there.
So that was emailed to us. I don't have the hard copy here. So
And we have extras right here.
There was.
Yeah,
I didn't get
it
the
did come in there was an email.
Okay.
Okay. And then the third question is how we're going to pay for this year's portion of it. And at this point in time, I've got a few projects I have not started yet this year. They're in my this year's budget that I would delay. The projects deal around installing VFDs on some return air fans on the primary school. I also have some money associated with some district-wide doors replacements that I can delay. So by by purposely not completing those projects, I'll have the funding required to pay for the permit work in this year's budget, and I'll have to just delay it to post years coming up.
Excuse me, is that the whole 32,000?
Correct.
All right.
And actually, this year, there's 20, if you look at the spending schedule, there's 25,748 that's in this year's fiscal year, and then the balance of around 6,500 is in next fiscal year.
Okay, that money that you're using from this year, can we expect to see that coming up again to put back in
Well,
for next year?
As you're aware, we're in the beginning of our budget process, so, we'll be working on the budget and making adjustments that you'll get a chance to look at. So the district-wide door budget is, we have so many doors in the district to maintain, and that's there for the purpose of replacing doors as they fail.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a few doors I plan on replacing. Probably will just push those out a little bit further.
Okay, so it's nothing imperative, nothing,
No, everything that
moment.
we're choosing to delay would be something that we can live with. Yeah.
okay. Does anybody else have anything? Any questions? Nothing? I think we're all set then. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Short period of time you were here. You see, he was very thorough in his explanation when he was here the last time.
He always is.
That's true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, all in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, presenting to us will be our Director of Curriculum, Christine Hessler, on the Student Achievement Report to the School Board.
I brought a friend tonight.
Good.
I did. I'd like to introduce Kristen Foley. She is a curriculum intern with me and has been with me since actually early February. She started her internship 3 months early because we were starting the process of proficiency-based curriculum steps. And when she came to interview me to see if it was a good fit, I had mentioned, we're just starting this. And she's like, well, can I start early? So Kristen is near the tail end of her project that she's doing. And one of the projects we picked for her to do was the annual achievement report. In the preference that this is something that we have done traditionally for years, and this is something that she helped participate and to gather data, and now can take it to wherever her journey leads her, and replicate it maybe for another community. So as we move forward, with our thank yous, in wrapping this whole piece up for you this week, I first want to thank, with a kind of chuckle, to Chris Howell, who used to serve in this position, for creating this actual achievement report. If you are new to the board, this started about 7 years ago, and Chris started this project in order to share with community. The purpose of this is a yearly check-in to share our data, demographics, look at trends, and to have it posted online for any community member to see. I also know in this position that when questions come up from parents or even people looking at our community and they have specific questions, we can send them to the report, and they can find out any statistic that they would like to. So I always chuckle because when he handed this over to me, I almost fainted, as you can imagine. But then, of course, he said it needs to grow and change as we grow and change. So I've added tweaks, and he usually gives me feedback and things like that. So, Kristen, I've just mentioned, this is very daunting work. I'm sure if you saw you have the 110 pages at your disposal, which I will not be addressing all 110 pages tonight, or even in the community, but they are there for you to read at your leisure or if you want to find something out. A special thank you to Cindy Kenny, because she is masterful in posting these things for me. In the last 2 years, she's actually broken it out into chapters. So if you were here before, you'd have to download the entire thing. You can now find a chapter on a certain section and preview that as well. And especially trying to get every graph and chart that the DOE puts out to format to put it into the actual report. I think if you stopped by the office the last 24 hours, I was camped in that office. Sandy told me I needed to move out. Jeannie Riley, many of the statistics you will see have to do with free and reduced lunch and populations of our students, and at a heartbeat she's able to pull those pieces out for us. very gracefully and anytime we need. And then our building principals and assistant principals, there are a few here tonight. At the end of the report, you will see their leadership report that they fill out every year. They get into the very minute details of their building goals, what they do with their data, what it says to them, and without them, you really get such a true picture of each building. And so I want to thank them because I know when they put these together in late spring, it's a daunting task for them. And I get to share that with you, but again, they put all the time and effort in to share with you about their each individual building. And then you as well, as I was thinking about this, you've always had an open forum for us to share about our community. You've been able to also give us some feedback of saying we would like this added to the report next year. This is something we're hearing from community, or this is an interest that I have. So this document becomes living and breathing and stays real because of the questions that you ask and the check-ins that you do with us, and the ability to also come to the board multiple times over a year. So you're not getting it all at once. We've talked about a couple of these things already in hand. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to say before we get started. And I always start with our mission. In the Wyndham Raymond schools, it's ensuring success for all learners. I always take the new twist as when I started here 3 years ago, I also believe in its success for all staff as well. So we do very rich professional development, and we try to have our staff grow and put them into leadership positions. And so with our staff, this is a statistic we always share. These are classroom teachers only. In the report that you have at hand, we also have our entire staff graph as well. But in our classrooms, excuse me, right now, 49% of our classroom teachers have a master's degree or higher, and comparing that with the DOE statistics on classroom teachers is at 43%. So we are running higher than the state average of teachers who have attained a master's degree. And so data and what it tells us. Kristen also is very sick, so I'm going to kind of share her slides. Not to put her on the spot, but I want you to know. These are some really important thoughts as we talk about why do we gather this data and what do we do with it. So this is a neat reminder is that we analyze our student data because it represents us as parents, as teachers, and as school leaders. What is it telling us, and what do we need to do based on it? And it's important for us to remember that as much as we look at a data point and we fuss over it and why is it happening, it is only a snapshot in time of our children. And it's important to remember that there's a huge component called the teacher who works with your child. There's state testing, and then there's the testing they do and how they perform in their classroom. So to keep the data points in perspective, which I think the community does really well. They ask questions when they're not sure. When I've worked with parents who are looking at a building score, I say, well, how did your child do, and what is that telling you? Does that match what you're seeing with your teacher? And it puts it in a different perspective for people. And then again, celebrating our achievements and thinking about, based on this data and these trends, what should we be doing? What should we be changing in instructional practice, or what should we keep doing? So what is the data telling us, and how do we react to that piece? And so, again, 110 pages is an awful lot to throw at you. So I picked some highlights just to share with you and community, and also wanted to point out this is a live link that we have set up. I made it this weekend. It is under the curriculum department. There's a whole tab on assessments. And for example, when we get to NECAP results, every school, every grade level is listed there, and you can click on a school. If your child's a third grader at Wyndham Primary, you can click on that and see the direct scores. For me to put those in your report, you would have been looking at a lot more than 110 pages, but they are there and available for you to see at any time. The No Child Left Behind pieces that we have to post are also on our website. That also disaggregates all of the data. If you wanted to know a certain population and how they did on a state testing, it is there for you to peruse as well. So these pieces you can also go to. So tonight I wanted to hit a couple of the traditional ones we usually talk about here and point out some pieces as we go through. So we're going to look at, very quickly, Jumpstart to Kindergarten, the kneecaps by a school, and then our high school assessments, and a couple of other quick pieces. So our early literacy data. What I'm going to share with you next, because this is one that we love to see, and this is pre and post Jumpstart to Kindergarten. For those that are new or new in the community, Jumpstart to Kindergarten is run in the summertime. We take a look at our kindergarten screening data in the spring, and we identify kids who are showing below average number of sounds that they know getting ready to come into kindergarten. And then we invite those children to come to a program for 6 weeks in the summertime. Last year, we actually had 47 students start the program. We ended up with 45. We actually ran an extra session because we had so much interest in the program. The program is free to parents. We provide busing. We also provide breakfast and a snack for kids. And they come with our well-trained teachers, and they start learning letters and letter sounds of the day, and we've done a lot of pieces with that. So this is the impact of this. So the first grid you're looking at are the number of sounds each of those children had when they were screened in kindergarten. Now the big bar is the max. That's 26 letters. That's how many you could have. So the orange represents how many they started with. These are kids we said, please come to kindergarten, please come to Jumpstart. So this is a graph of 15. In your report, you'll see each cohort. We have 3 groups of 15. At the end of Jumpstart, this is the letter sounds that they had. And then this graph shows it to you combined. So you can see the growth that children made in 6 weeks by coming to Jumpstart. Kiddos that had 0 that now have 14. So it is an amazing influence that we can have on those children. The other piece we look at, whoops, we lost them. Was our letter IDs, so you also have that in your packet as well. So you're going to see each cohort and the gains that they made in those pieces. We know that early intervention is crucial when we started this, and we're really looking forward to our 3rd year, our 3rd summer of kiddos coming in before they start school. The next set of data trends are our kneecap data. The kneecap testing went from 2009 and ended last fall, 2013. We'll address that in a minute. But the data you're going to see right now is one that we've already talked about and shared, but I want the public to also see it. These are grades 3 through 8. High school does a different set of pieces. And so, excuse me, the kneecap is designed to assess learning from the prior year. This test was used to be given in the fall. So if I am a 3rd grader at Raymond Elementary School, it's actually testing what I would have been taught in 2nd grade. So it's kind of a bubble down. Last fall was our last set of kneecaps. We're looking at a brand new state test coming this spring, which I'll address in a minute. Why do we have this state testing? It is used for federal accountability purposes. That is the reason we have to do this test. So this is results for math in the entire span of the testing kneecap window from 2009 on. The color bands represent a cohort of students. So to read this graph, if I'm looking at grade 3 in October of 2009, those were our 3rd graders, and 66% of them in math in grade 3 in Wyndham Primary and RES, we put them together, 66% of our kids were proficient or above. And then you can follow the next year, you see that they went down into a dip. And then in 5th grade, they went up to 68. So you can see the trends. The trends is what we really focus on to see, is this a group of kids that we need to keep an eye on, which we can traditionally see and almost predict how they're going to end up? What do we have in place for those students? And are we seeing trends as an RSU? So this was our math data, and this is the whole scope of where we are on that piece. And again, now we're switching tests. So. Oops, did not go. Here we go. And so if I look at that data point, here are some instructional practices based on the data. For example, we saw a trend in math in the K-3 level that was slowly declining. So this year we were able to put in professional development called Math Solutions for all K-3 teachers. It started in October 24th, huge in-service day, and now we have actually 10 days of follow-up visits. The consultant from Math Solutions was here last week at primary school, and it consists of her modeling lessons in our classrooms and teachers teaching lessons while she is there giving them feedback. The teachers have very much enjoyed this part of professional development because it wasn't a one-day workshop and now you're on your own. She's coming back in February. They all have goals. They know what they're going to try to do, and this is a constant check-in with people. How are you doing with these strategies? What is working for you? What supports do you need to move forward? So also with the math, we have 2 pieces of software that are implemented district-wide, K-8. One is called Fast Math to work on the automaticity of facts, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And we have another software called IXL K-8. That way students can actually work at their own level and work through strands in the math concepts that they need some work on and some automaticity and practice pieces. And so also based on our data, if we take a look at our writing piece, this is a proposed piece that I will be coming forward with you. Based on our data, we're finding a weakness in our writing. This is a huge expression in our teachers as we're working through curriculum, and I will share more with you at budget time, but based on that data, one of the pieces I will be bringing forward to you is adopting a writing program. It's called Lucy Calkins Unit of Study for K-8. Again, streamlining the process for teachers, having stepped by step all the way through, because it's an area of weakness we've identified. And when we're gathering things, we're finding teacher over here is doing this and the teacher next door is doing this, and we're like, we need something to tie us all together. Again, same idea as Math Solutions, bringing in professional development on site to work with teachers with their own kids in their classrooms. And then we have AimsWeb, which is used at benchmarking time, K-8, 3 times a year, and it's almost like a wellness check for your child. We're checking to see in ELA and math, where are students that are not up to benchmark, what interventions can we give them, we can progress monitor them until the next time, and it provides us that very important intervention data for students so that we can get them the help they need as early as they need it. So those are some of the pieces based on the data that we get from, for example, the state tests that we can use to improve practice. At the high school takes the MHSA, which is the main high school assessment. It is given to all third-year students in the high school. And so just as a reminder, this is an achievement level standard for writing, reading, mathematics, and science. So there are 4 sections that are determined by the state that students need to take. This is exciting. I half expect Christopher Howell to come flying through the door doing cartwheels because I've never seen a grown man skip, but I can tell you I've witnessed it as I go through these data points from you. So in critical reading, the state score was 1141. The high school scored an 1142, but what is even more impressive is that the high school gained 3 points of growth this year, 3 statistical points up from where they were the year before, which are huge gains. Mathematics, we were above 1 point as the state, and again, we gained 3 points in growth statistically in our scores from the previous year. In writing, we were down a point under the state, but even being down that point, we gained 2 points from where we were last year. And in science, we were tied with the state, but again, another 2 points from last year. Those were huge gains for the high school because I think I want the public also to know is when we get those scores back, they're looked at. So what do we need to do to improve instruction? What do we need to put in place? And so I compiled a list of at the high school based on what we had of what opportunities for learning we have put in place at the high school with your blessing. We have study halls, and when a kid has a study hall, they also have the opportunity to go to a spot, and now I know it's the library, but there's a math teacher there every period to help any student who needs intervention or help with their math. We have now added IXL Math, the software program, up to the high school level to help kids who haven't quite grasped the concepts they need to before they move from Algebra 1 on to the next level. They can do that remediation on their own. The APEX program that you have at the high school, that's an opportunity for students to come in and work on standards and be able to stay in school and to continue their learning. We also use Odyssey for credit recovery for kids. If they've missed a credit and they need to do it, how do I do that with my full schedule already? We have that put in place. We're using Naviance more, which I know is a guidance program, but putting kids on that software and helping them chart what they want to do when they leave really helps lend itself to help focus some of our kids about what they need to do to reach the next level, either career or college ready. And then the other work that you've heard about is really identifying very clear graduation standards and performance indicators so students know exactly what they need to be able to do to be successful in that class, but also when they leave Wyndham High School. So those are the many things that, based on data, were put into place, and it's really nice to see, you know, those statistical points pop up. So what's next for us? Well, number one, kneecap has gone away. We have a new test coming this spring. It is called the MEA for Math and ELA. It is also referred to as SBAC, you may hear, which means it's from the vendor Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium. Each state needed to sign on. There were two choices. One was Achieve, one was Smarter Balance. The state of Maine chose Smarter Balance. That test will be rolling out in the spring. The window is mid-March to the end of May. This will test students in ELA and math from grades 3 to 8 in third-year high school. There will be new achievement levels. I can't share, I don't know what the levels are going to be for proficiency, but we will be getting all that information. I was Friday at the regional meeting. The DOE is really rolling out all of these pieces, so as soon as we have information, we'll pass it along to you as board as well. There will be a learning curve, and I really believe we're going to need to do a workshop to understand the new process and what is being asked of our kids so we can interpret the data the way that we need to interpret it. Just like when kneecap rolled in 2009, it's a new thing we need to get used to. This is brand new. This will be all taken on a device, whether it's the iPad or the laptops. The RSU is working together with our leadership team to have a schedule of testing that will be spread out along those windows. Because we have other things going on in that 12-week window. We have SAT testing. We have advanced placement testing at the high school. We have the MEA for science still going on. You can't have every child on a device on the test at the same time. So we're working together and having a schedule so each parent will be getting notification from their principal on when their testing window will open. So there'll be so much more coming on this test window and what this test will be doing as well. In your achievement report, there's also a place that if you would like to go and see what these questions are like, there's a practice test and a training test that anyone in the public can sign on and do. And they're in ranges. So you could click on the grades 3 to 5 ELA. And the test that the children will take will actually, part of it will adapt to the learner. The practice and training tests do not adapt, so don't worry about that. But you could sit down as a board member and any community member and take one of the series of tests to see what types of questions. This is very different. There's parts where students actually watch a video and then they reflect on it. It's very interactive for kids. It's worthwhile to know this is not a paper pencil test anymore and what the expectations are for our students. Our staff, many of the kids have already played with the practice test. There is a window of an interim test coming, which we're going to encourage classrooms to do so that it's a shorter version of what they'll really be doing in March. But that way students can see this is the layout, this is what it's like, this is how I navigate. Get to use all the tools in the system. So these are the really big pieces coming up. And all I can say is there is more to come. I mean, every day I go into the portal and there's a new message with something new that we need to do and ready in the RSU. And so as soon as we know more and we can talk about achievement levels, I'll be back. How's that sound? So in your achievement report, the full report will be online tomorrow for the public. You have it in your Dropbox to look at. And if anybody watching, if you're on our RSU14 website, there's the department tab, which has a curriculum tab. There is a separate tab for annual achievement report. It is bookmarked by chapters, and the previous years are also available there for you to download. And I will have that posted, the new one, online tomorrow. Waiting to just kind of talk to see everybody tonight. So if you're wondering what is the contents of the report, here are the different chapters. It addresses the introduction and tells the why we do this report, our mission and vision, the demographics of our school community. So demographics on free and reduced lunch, the percentage of special education students and what those categories are, our school populations and seeing trends, the demographics of our towns, our populations, and pieces like that. It also lists our resources, which lists your budget for the past 4 years, broken down into categories. If people would like to see how much we spend on a certain line item, those are there. Your student learning indicators, I shared some of them with you tonight, some very quick highlights, but everyone in full is there. If it's not there in full, like the kneecaps, which could go on forever, there is a link for you to access each and every one of those. We've also included, which we talked about last spring, the state of Maine issues a report card for every school and gives them a letter grade. Those are there listed as well, in case anyone would like to know how a certain school is doing and what those grades are based upon. And then lastly, in those report is a building leadership report from each of our building administrators, which goes into details, the goals they set the previous year for their staff, how those goals were achieved, what data points that they're looking at, plans as they move forward, and a really nice snapshot of the year before then and what they're doing. So that is my whole piece for you. Do you have any questions that we could answer? Yes, Jerry?
I just, one quick one with the new Smarter Balance that's being done in the spring. Is that to be assessing what happened in the fall as opposed to?
This will be assessing where they are now. So the window is open so that elementary, well, they say K to 8 should have completed 66% of their school year, and that high school should complete 80% of their school year. So they've built in that time. So it's actually testing the year. What is really nice, Jerry, that's coming, wasn't ready for this fall, we've talked about in the past, these interim tests that are coming. Next fall, we could do interim tests at each school with each kid. That's a direct correlation of the spring. So I can now look at the data on how they did in the fall, and they can go on a couple other times and work on, I know exactly what my students need to work on. So that's the beauty of this piece that's coming. Mm-hmm. It's not here yet. So in the past, we've used, for example, an NWEA and said this is a correlation to how they might do, but this is going to actually tell you exactly how they're doing. And that is free to us. So we'll be able to, once we go through the first round, know how to scaffold that as we move forward with this piece. This is going to be the first year. This is going to be this is going to be brand new for everyone in the state. And I think when I talked to some very nervous teachers and individuals, I've said, wait, everyone's doing this for new. Mm-hmm. We're going to figure this out. We're going to do and move forward, and then we're going to see what it gives us. Adjust like we do. Like we said, we've always said, what is the data telling us? What do we need to adjust? What are the trends we're seeing? Mm-hmm. And move forward to do what's best for the kids in RSU14. So.
Do you think it's going to be an improvement from the kneecaps or whatever you've been doing?
I think
retention, because you're always going off that last year's.
Right. This is going to be live. It's going to take 3 years to see a real trend. I think it's going to show us, I'm hoping what Smarter Balance has said is this will give us much more detailed information about our students.
In the present time.
For that piece. The big shift is that students are going to need to apply what they've learned. And so I think that will be a big reality for us to say, do we ask students in our classrooms to apply what they've learned independently? And so that's going to be a piece that we're going to need to think about. And do we help kids understand how to problem solve independently? It takes another piece. They're adding a higher order level thinking. That's why I really encourage you, if you haven't played on the practice test, take a look at it. It was, the scary thing is you can take it and then you see what grade level it is and you go, oh my gosh. As a parent, I was like, oh Lord.
If we do it, they won't report that.
No, your reports are not scored. You don't need to give them to Sandy or myself. But I think it's an eye-opener of what we're going to be asking kids to do. And when we're looking at pieces. So, we're very excited. Dr. Rhodes was asked to go to Texas this year to learn about the scoring and help set the cut scores. So we have some people on the ground that are really working to understand this new tool that we have and to move, forward with it.
Great.
We've always had state testing. It's what you do with it that really, do you use it or do you just put it on a shelf? And I think here, what I have found is we really use it and we figure out what we need to do to help our students and to our staff. So.
Great. Thank you.
Say anything?
No. You've said it all. Is that a copy of the report?
It is.
That's pretty big, isn't it?
It
On 11
is.
pages?
Yes.
It's 100, and I know, I always say, when we get to the end, what's the pages? And I'm like, oh, gosh. It's okay.
Work in progress for several months.
It has, yeah. Because some data is released early and then some is not. And so how do the, you want to share it, but it's a big piece, but I have found, and I didn't quite believe Mr. Howell when he told me this, it really comes in handy as the year goes on, as people have different questions. It's done, it's here. It isn't somebody digging for a demographic, it's all right here. So,
I'm not trying to give the board extra reading, but I'm sure people probably have some questions. So it's
Right.
kind of like if hopefully when we have time and you get to
Right.
read this,
please.
then we can, if
Yeah.
you come up with questions for her, it's probably the best time because
Right.
I hate to ask a question and then go in and open the book and there it is on the first
Yeah.
page.
No,
And my
absolutely.
answer-
It's an awful lot to digest, so please, we've traditionally done that in the past. I've had emails or people visit and we've gone through pieces, whatever we can do whatever. It's a lot to come out and go over every piece. Pete, I'm sorry.
I just have a general question. In your experience, can you estimate like what the lifespan of these tests are? Like how often are they changing?
Well, the kneecap went 5 years, 5, 6 years. The MEA started with just testing grades 4 and 8, and then they went to the kneecap, which tested 3 through 8. So I would think, at least I think we're set for 5 years. I would think. Once we get comfortable with it, then they change the rules. I honestly
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if it takes 3 years to develop
a trend, right?
and then,
right.
we finally get some useful information, and then it just switches to something.
Correct.
I know that's outside of our control. I was just
Right.
curious about how often that
Right.
happens.
When I was at the regional meeting, there wasn't any mention of that. I think everybody that is in my position, we're trying to do this really well for staff. I mean, some of the manuals were over 90 pages, and we're like, no, we need to streamline, and what do we need to do and to make this a good experience for our kids. We know, I will just put this out there, we will probably have times where technology crashes, and it's probably not ours, but there were times during the field test that Smarter Balance site went down, which now kids across the country are shut off, so my message to staff is if we get shut off for a day, we just got to be flexible and, pick up. We're going to go back to what we were doing, and we'll revisit it when we can. So
Thankfully, we have plenty of other data points. So
we do have other data points. This will be a new wrinkle because when you're paper pencil, it's pretty easy to manage when you want to do that. Now we were talking about if you put more than 100 devices on, are you in jeopardy of crashing a network? So those are the things we're going to test out before we go live with the summative test in the spring. Those interims to say if we put all 8th graders on at Wyndham Middle School, were we okay? So Bob Hickey is, of course, instrumental in this work and how we get this done in the whole behind-the-scenes pieces. So there's a lot of effort getting in with this piece with staff. So.
Is there ever any correlation when they go from one test to another?
Not sure. I think once they share with us the achievement pieces, they might, what the outside researchers have said, based on the training test, the pilot test, they did it all across the country, is that our scores will probably mirror our NAEP scores, which are, you volunteer, your every fourth grader, you're randomly chosen, which traditionally run 20 points below what our kneecap scores have been. So that's a shocker when you hear it that way, but people on the outside who have done the statistical researches are saying, when our results come back, do not be shocked if they're much lower than what the achievement scores came out for kneecap. We're going to have to wait and see when they come through March. I wish I had a better answer for you, but this is what we're being told, and we won't know till we get it. That's the hard part. And that's unsettling for us, because we want to be able to answer those questions and say, based on this, we should lend here. Your NAEP scores are also on 4th graders at Manchester School who are randomly chosen, so it's not every 4th grader. So now you're mixing it. It's valid and reliable? Not sure. So, sorry.
Real set. Well, I want to thank you. That was a lot of work.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your
Yes.
help.
thank you.
And I know, I also know Cindy also worked very hard on it. Two.
You'd be surprised how obsessive you can get about, like, a title that won't fit on the right page and the graph gets skewed and, but we try our best.
As usual, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For the information, and I'm sure once everybody gets a chance
Yeah.
to sit down and at least start reading it.
Yeah.
there
Please
will
don't
be-
hesitate.
The other thing I would just like to say is that there was a time there was no state testing, so I was on the school board way back before any of this, so it is, just started. But I also appreciate you take the information, you do something with it.
Yeah.
It's not just a waste, because that is a waste when people just complain about this and we do it and we don't use it. But I really appreciate that you use it, you showed us how you use it, so it's not a mindless, exercise, and it's making a difference with students. So I know it's more work, and I understand all of that about the testing, but I appreciate that at least our district is really committed to doing this and doing it well and using it, and you've shown us how you use it, and you've improved. So that's great. That's terrific. That's exactly why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, we will have an update on the AmeriCorps program at the Manchester School. Principal Cindy Curtis will update the board on the rollout of jump rope and the new standards-based reporting system, and an overview of the AmeriCorps volunteer program by, she brought company, Danielle Danini, Craig Holmes, Robert, is it Deacon? And Darlene Jeffers. And you can introduce if they come up.
Okay, thank you. Well, my part in tonight is to talk to you a little bit about jump rope, and I'm not sure if you realize that at Manchester School we entirely implemented jump rope this year. Every teacher used jump rope, and it was a huge effort. A brand new program that none of them had ever seen before. But they jumped in both feet first, as they always do, always willing to try new things. We had a lot of support as we went through this. We had Sarah Needleman from USM, of course our own RSU technology team. Kelly Williamson, one of our teachers, piloted the program herself last year. So she was a real big support right inside the school. And then our in-home technology experts. We're lucky in that at Manchester we have a number of, I guess I would call them newer teachers. They've been here a while, but when they went through college, it was much different than, say, when people my age went through college. Technology is their way of life. So there was plenty of support within the school, and I won't say we didn't work really hard, long hours, after-school hours, anytime, recesses, lunch hours, and so forth. But what I guess I really wanted to share with you is I think everyone was unsure how this new thing was going to go over with everybody outside, with parents, and so forth. Our first reports went out in March, and they go out with I'm thinking the next ones go out in March. I'm sorry. I'm thinking ahead. They went out in December. And with one push of a button, all the parents in a classroom get their report via technology, unless they don't have that capability, and then, of course, they can be printed off. And it was amazing to me. We, of course, did some things ahead of time with parents in explaining how this was going to work. We had a parent night. We had people asking questions all the way along the way. It went over better than I could ever have imagined for being so new and different. And I think one thing is our students probably for the last 8 years anyway have been used to, our students and parents, getting 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So that's not really a new concept. The newer concept is that it comes out in a graph form and plots the 1, 2, 3, 4, or the 2.3. Marge, questions?
Cindy, just so for the public, because we've had the presentation on jump rope, could you just give a small, brief description on what jump rope is for anybody who's watching?
Okay. I think actually, I'm trying to see. No, it's not in there. I can. It's a technology-based way of reporting students' achievement towards standards. And as a teacher performs certain assessments, they put them right into jump rope. Little Johnny's goes in whenever she determines for a certain unit that they may be working on, let's say geometry. They're working towards standards in geometry, for instance. And they go along until the reporting period, and then the teacher reports out to the parents. Now, the interesting thing is, and we have not done this yet, because this is the very first time, you can run that report anytime. You could run it after the first 2 weeks of school if a parent came in and wanted to know how is he doing in social studies. I wish I had a bigger, like a big poster graph so that people could see it, but if you look in this little flyer, which is what we actually shared with parents on parent night, you can see, like on the back middle, a tiny little cut of what the report cards look like. Green is meeting the standard. Yellow, it's kind of a yellowy green, is partially meeting the standard. It gives it to you both in a bar graph form and also in a numerical, 3.4, 3.2, so forth. I think the hardest concept for parents to understand, particularly, is like when report cards went out in December. Students are working on standards. They get to the end and they complete a standard, and they either meet the standard or they partially meet it when they get to the end. Well, in December, for a lot of things, they're still working towards meeting a standard. So in December, you would see more yellowy green bars. Now, by March, you'll probably see a lot more green bars, but you'll see more yellow because they will have gone on to another standard. They will have progressed on. It's, I guess, as I started to say, the thing that surprised me most is that my office did not receive one question from anybody, not one parent being upset or questioning or, just even small, easy questions. The questions that were asked of the teachers, and teachers were able to answer them very easily, and I look for more good things to come from this. The thing that I really like about it is we're able to report in a much deeper way children's learning. It's not just geometry. It's all the different parts of geometry. And you can see that your child is doing well in 3 of them and is having a little trouble with number 4. And also the things that within this that help teachers pinpoint the interventions they need to deliver to children to make sure they do meet the standards. So I hope that you can take some time to read through this. This actually, even as little as it is, gives you a lot of information. It reports the grading system and how it works. Why is a standards approach better for student learning? Benefits. And it also it helps parents interpret the grading system and explains what standards-based grading is. It is not the same kind of grading that we've had for 100 years. So anyway, I want to offer extreme praise to my staff. It was a big undertaking. It was scary, but they didn't give up, and it turned out in a mighty fine way. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
And with that, before AmeriCorps speaks, I'm going to introduce Stacy Sanborn and Donna Morton. Reason being, they were part of the 5210 grant that actually leads right into the AmeriCorps presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did everyone get it? All set. Thank you. Good evening, ladies.
Hello. Well, we're very, very excited
Could you
about...
tell everybody who you are? I mean,
Oh, yes,
some of
yes,
us know.
exactly. I'm Donna Morton. I'm a retired 4th grade teacher, and now I'm the wellness coordinator for RSU14.
I'm Stacy Sanborn. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Manchester, and I'm here to just talk about the gardening aspect of this grant.
So this fall, we were aware of some money from, it's called the Public Health Program, which is part of the Opportunity Alliance, which is the Let's Go program. 5210 is part of that. And the grants were mini grants to promote health goals. And they were looking especially for environmental changes and sustainable use of the funds to promote healthy habits. And so we wrote a grant together, Stacy and I, and we were awarded $716 for our Manchester Learning Garden. So we're very excited about this new project. So I'll let you.
And it was great to bring the gardening committee with our wellness committee. We obviously have some very common goals, and this grant definitely fit with that. So what we're looking for with this grant is to add some picnic tables to our garden area. We currently don't have anything there, so we don't have a work area to work with outside. We have a hoop house, and there's a couple of tables inside, but this gives us an area outdoors. It gives us a classroom outdoor working area, just to be outdoors, even if you wanted to read and enjoy the outdoor space. It's going to allow us to make some more raised beds. We currently have, I believe it's 5 raised beds. We're going to add a couple more raised beds. So to be able to purchase the lumber and the materials, the compost and the topsoil would be great. We also, and the kids always seem to be surprised by this when they get to the salad bar. We grow some grapes right at school, and they do fairly well. And so we want to have a nice arbor for them to grow on. So that's where some of the money is going to be spent for the garden. And what's really great is that it does give us a chance to have the kids outdoors, to have hands-on experiences, to have real-life experiences, connect it with math activities, figure out the perimeter and the area of these raised beds, but to also see that, you know, healthy choices can be made with, you know, being outdoors, being active, getting your hands dirty, but also growing vegetables, and then for the kids to be able to see them from start to finish. You know, they help make the beds, they start the seedlings, we put them in the ground, and then we go out and we start to pick, and then they show up in our salad bar. And sometimes the kids help to even prepare them to be served at lunch. Some of the fun projects that we have done over a number of years with the produce would be to, we've worked with our food services director and our school nutrition coordinator, and we've made carrot soup and carrot muffins and served that to other students in the school, and that's always been a fun activity. Providing healthy snacks for the students. We do a lot of flower arrangements and provide those during open house and for our new staff members at the beginning of the school year. We've had school-wide projects where all students have participated in starting some seedlings. We have a shed for our garden, and we recently had some of our gifted and talented art students help to paint that with some real pretty flowers and butterflies and garden bugs and whatnot. So it's a real nice area for the students to work in. So we're really excited to have this money to add to that garden. Lots of great projects and ideas that we have coming down the road, and just different ways to connect them with activities in the classroom and those hands-on experiences.
And one of the components of the grant was to use this to involve more students. So by having more garden space, more students can be involved, which is great. So, yeah, great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good job.
So we can invite you over for salad.
Yes.
And to hoe and pick weeds.
And just the pride that the students have to be able to, you know, go through the salad bar and say, those are our carrots, we grew those cucumbers. It's just amazing. Or to have a pumpkin in the classroom that they've raised, and they get to estimate its weight and then carve it and, you know, enjoy the seeds and so forth. It's really been a great experience. And we've been really lucky to actually have our AmeriCorps volunteers help us with gardening. So I'm going to let them kind of take over and move on.
Thank you. You know, it's great. It's great that you're able, and we have within our district been able to expose students to healthy eating, and what better way to eat healthy than to grow it yourself. Wonderful. Thank you.
So I just wanted to make some connections between the three apparently random things we're talking about tonight. to go back to the, this is Craig Hames. He is helping tonight explain how the AmeriCorps program came to Manchester, and he works full-time at the Real School. You may have seen him before. And he's been a great asset getting this off the ground. Just going back to it, our school vision is aligned with the district vision, and it's success for all, but it's really specifically looking at authentic learning opportunities for kids that are engaging and personalized and relevant. And while technology is very engaging and very relevant to them, we also know that we want it to be real in other ways, like the gardening and service learning and serving the community. So to back up and just connect some of what we've been talking about to the jump rope program, now last year when we did things with the gardening, and the Gardens for Learning and the experiments they would do, it was hard to capture that in a way that looked like it mattered for students on their learning reports. Even though they did a lot of learning, it didn't quite match up. And now teachers can pull in the standards that match what their students are learning. And it can be different standards for different students and different groups of students in a class. And so that's a tremendous, we've just started to do that, but it's great to be able to pull in, if they're doing an observation of the growth of a pumpkin sprout, that's a science standard, observing and collecting data. So they can pull those units together. They can tie in writing pieces with that and art with that. So I think that's a really, even though it seems more like a technology piece that is more dry, it really can make the things that come alive in the school show up in a place that makes the kids know that that really matters, that counts as learning. So that's exciting, and I think we'll do a lot more of that going forward. So the other part of this presentation is about AmeriCorps volunteers that we are really fortunate to have in our school this year for the first time ever. And I just wanted to say that it's all new, and it's been great, and we're very lucky, and we're, again, learning a lot about how to make the program the best it can be for the kids. But I wanted to introduce Craig to just give an overview of what AmeriCorps is and how it connects to service learning that we're doing as a district.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you all tonight. My name is Craig Hames. I'm a teacher at the Real School, and I also am the AmeriCorps Service Learning Program Director. So I have two roles there. To back up a little bit, we received this grant in 2012. It's a $230,000 per year grant to bring in AmeriCorps National Service members into our school to help students with service learning projects. As you know, the Real School serves at-risk students from Wyndham-Raymond and as many as 24 other sending districts. Many of these students have not found success in traditional school settings, so it's incumbent upon us to try and make the learning be as relevant and meaningful for them as it can possibly be. And we found that service learning is a great way to do that because it provides built-in relevance for them. When they get out into the community and see a real problem and learn that they can be part of the solution to that problem, that immediately builds in some investment for our students. So it's a great approach to learning for our kids, and we recognize that. And in recognizing that, we shifted our curriculum so that 2 hours of their school day, every day, is focused on service learning. And over the 3 years that we've had the program, we've accomplished all kinds of great projects. This year, a project that I'm really excited about is a green crab eradication project. You probably have all read in the news the invasive green crab problem, where these crabs are kind of overtaking the rocky intertidal area in clam flats, and the clammers are getting reduced yields on soft-shell clams. And one of the reasons they believe it has to do with the green crabs. And so our students have partnered with people in the marine field and learned about this and designed a project to try and catch as many of these green crabs as they can and to find a value-added product to use with the crabs. And so they've looked at composting them. They've actually made crab bisque and served it at school lunch. They're looking into potentially shipping them over to China, where they're a delicacy, all kinds of things that could potentially be done with this nuisance in the marine environment. So that's a perfect example of a project that's relevant for the kids. It has societal value and is engaging, highly engaging. So that's what the AmeriCorps program is all about. We've had some good success with it over the years, and at the end of last year, Michael Ashmore, who's the Maine grants officer with the Maine Commission on Community Service, who is the state agency that channels the funds to us, had 4 extra members available, and since our program had been successful, he reached out to me and said, we have 4 additional members, would you like to have them serve at the real school? And we thought about that and realized that we were already so fortunate to have as many as 16 other national service members at our school. And we realized that that was enough at our school, but rather we decided to reach out to RSU14 and send an email out and say, would anybody in the school district find use for some AmeriCorps members to do service learning projects? And this is where Manchester comes in. I think Manchester has a pretty strong history with community service and service learning. And so Danielle and Cindy responded that, yeah, they'd be interested in that, as did the high school. And so there's 2 members who are serving in the APEX program as well. So that's how it kind of came to be. And since then, we've been kind of working together to refine the program and to make it as successful as it can be in these other 2 schools within the RSU14 district. And we have 2 of those members with us here, Darlene Jeffers, who's back here, and Robert Deacon, who's back there. And in a moment, we'll call them forward, and they can tell you a little bit about the service that they're doing. I'm very proud of it, and I think it's been great. Anytime you have a new program, you have to figure out how to mesh these people into an existing school culture and find ways for it to work, so it's not always an immediate slam dunk. But I think what we're seeing is real progress towards the kids being more and more engaged at Manchester and getting good outcomes from what I've heard from the leadership at Manchester. So that's the program.
Great. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. So can I call the
You
AmeriCorps
certainly
members
can.
up to come talk a little bit about specifically what they're doing?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just wanted to, as they come up, I wanted to share that we have some data.
You can
that-
come up, just
Yeah,
pull
come
another
on up,
chair.
pull up a chair. We have a pretty traditional school schedule.
Can
Math-
everybody make, I'm sorry to interrupt,
that's all right.
Danielle. Can everybody make sure that when they speak into the microphone? It's very difficult to pick up people's voices there.
So as Craig said, we trying to fit service learning into our traditional schedule and have played around with different ways to do that. And what we realized is really trying to mesh with what the schedule already had been. So Darlene and Deke, Mr. Deacon, have been scheduled into certain classrooms where there may have been pockets of either interest on the part of the class on a certain project that they had already thought about, or pockets of kids that we really thought needed some more support engaging with their learning. And that's sort of what we settled on maybe around October as a model, and that's really been great. The feedback we're getting from kids and from parents at meetings coming in saying, I don't know what that is doing, but my son loves meeting with them every lunchtime. And it started out as a little project to work on recess problem solving, but I think the beauty of it is really the mentorship piece as well. So it's really a combination of service learning and kids having some mentors to help them work through some academic challenges, but also social challenges and problem solving, and just feeling like I have somebody there that's just there special for me. And it's just great to have full-time volunteers every day, to have 2 people who can, on the fly, help kids do what they want to do with projects. Just the last thing I'll say, we had a student wrote a proposal this week to be a sports blogger, and within that same day, tying this into the newspaper that's coming around. We just started a school newspaper. This student didn't quite know it yet, And he will probably be the next sports writer in the next edition. It's as quick as, it's really helping capture student interests in real time because they have more time to help figure this stuff out. And it's been great. So I'll let you guys speak.
Well, maybe you
can
could
pull the
tell me a
mic to
little
you.
bit about what you'd like to know, maybe something we've accomplished.
Well, actually, if you could just give us an overview of what your working is. What is your function there? What kind of tasks are you doing? Do you meet with one-on-one? Do you meet with a small group? And what is it? Academic? Is it more service learning, or a combination of all?
Well, it varies depending, one, on the time, the student. We try to take projects and tie it in with the curriculum. We do a check-in and check-out with some of our at-risk students in the morning and in the afternoon, so that's how we originally started. And then what we did was we had decided to try and tie some of these at-risk students into service learning projects to get them more engaged. One of the programs that I did with the 5th grade class, our check-in, check-out student was in that classroom. We made ornaments, Christmas ornaments. These kids had to make the ornaments themselves. They had to create and produce their own invoice, sell these ornaments, and work together as a team to run this business. And they did. And the money that they earned, they will be donating to the MSSPA. Did I get those initials right?
The horse.
Yes.
For the Humane Society on River Road. Their goal was $500. We told them if they reached their goal, we could have a pizza party. We
In
didn't.
place of their lunch, don't worry, wellness policy. is
Yes,
very-
yes. And they did jumping jacks before.
We earned one, too.
The teacher and I thought, okay, and we told the kids that's a really high number, just so that you're aware. Well, they did. They raised $525, and they are so excited to be able in April when they have Community Day to present that check. So they did a wonderful job. I was so impressed. The one student that we had for at-risk, when I first met him, it was like button heads. By the time we were done with this project, this boy searches me out. It's awesome. It's just a great feeling to see how much he has grown in this short period of time. That's just one example.
We have, when Mrs. Jeffers says the check-in, check-out program, that's a research-based intervention to provide social skills coaching and problem solving and goal setting with students. And we've had that in place for years, and it's always trying to, of course, piece together who's available to check in and check out which kids when, because we don't have a dedicated position for that. So they've been a tremendous help, because that's a great help for a lot of kids. And we have data from comparing the fall to now, the students who are showing up with multiple office discipline referrals, mostly for recess and playground and problem solving and social issues. The data's great for those kids, so that's been wonderful to see. So that's not a project per se, but it's integrated with projects as depending on what classroom's working on what or what student interest is. And Mr. Deacon, you want to talk about the newspaper?
Sure. Can you just pull the mic over a little? Thank you.
Darlene Jeffers and I, we love our country and love our kids. This is a great experience. We found that sometimes there's a challenge as an existing structure, and we have to find the nanoseconds in between things to sometimes do all that we do. But we're in an environment where the teachers and the school has a long history of wanting to do some type of service orientation activities in the school, so that's a good base to start with for us. Among the things that we do, we Bus Safety Week, the students made thank you cards for bus drivers in Raymond and Wyndham at the Real School, letters to veterans. We sometimes get involved in classes where Darlene might do a presentation about math and then work with a student. or I might do something on maps. When we had the Cumberland County Fair, I did a presentation on map making, how to use maps, and the students work together. They learn in a variety of ways. So all of our efforts are not just targeted for specific students at risk necessarily, although they're swept up in the activities that we do. So if we have this newspaper, for example, that highlights service learning that I came up with, and we're coming out with, we have stories going on now, for example, where the project, the MSPPA that was done in one class with Ms. Jeffers' assistance. I have another student in another class that's interviewing some of the students who took part in that. They wrote thank you cards to Ms. Jeffers about the project, and the student is interviewing the students. He's going to write an article for us. We have a student who is interested in sports. He's writing about sports. We have other students who will do articles about other things that they like at school or interest them in life, where they can process what some of these ideas that we might talk to them about. I was in a class today where we talked about thank you and why you say thank you, and we did a lesson on how to write a thank you letter, and it related to the school garden, and the garden that the fifth graders had planted the year before, and they were writing letters to some of the fifth graders saying, you know, this is the food that we eat in our cafeteria. It's fresh, it's healthy, it's tasty. They're learning vocabulary. They're writing. They're appreciating the good deeds of others. We have a student writing about the Rachel's Challenge type program that's currently going on. So we're not necessarily creating everything. We're sort of drawing upon things that are already happening and using this to sort of add to, it's not either or, but more both and, so that we can do more with less. We don't have too much time to get the students alone all the time, but we work our way into existing programs to facilitate what the teachers are doing, find time to encourage the students to feel positive about themselves, to love school, enjoy the school experience, and to want to come back and be all that they can be in their life. And we just love the kids, and we found that we are popular at lunch. Sometimes they ask to come eat with us because they like to talk with us, and we talk about all kinds of things with them, and it's just a joy to do this. And we know that we can see that the kids are growing, but a lot of this is, it's, as they were talking about Jump Road, there are bars that are yellow. They're still developing. We're not done yet. We're a work in progress. This is our first year. But I think that this is something that's very worthwhile, and I would say that anyone who has a chance to learn about or participate in this type of program is a good thing to have.
I'd like to add a couple of things real quick. We are having students come up to us now saying, I have a project that I want to do, which is really, really nice. When you have a fourth grade boy come up to you and say, can I go to the kindergarten class and teach them their alphabet? So they're thinking about other ways that they can serve their community. And they're looking outside. I think at fourth grade, they tend to think community. They're looking outside of themselves at other ways that they can help others, which is really nice.
That's great. What is the, and you'll have to refresh my memory on this, what's the duration of the AmeriCorps in the Manchester school? Is it 1 year?
It's a 1 year.
And then it goes similar to how it started at the real school.
Right.
It was 1 year, and then it added, and it became almost permanent.
We just gave some data and information because they submitted another grant, so I think.
Do you have information on that, Craig? You look like you wanted to say something, that's why I figured.
The new grant, maybe I should share a little bit about that.
Actually, I think that might be working, so they don't have to move.
Okay. Great. So yes, seems like good timing since it came up. So we're at the end of our 3-year grant cycle, and it was called the Formula Grant Cycle, which was we were in with 3 other AmeriCorps programs in the state. But we were encouraged to apply for a somewhat larger pool of money for the next 3-year cycle, and it's called the Competitive Grant Pool. And we just submitted a proposal for that pool, which is going to be substantially larger if we get it, and we'll have as many as 48 AmeriCorps members serving in 5 different schools. many of them outside of RSU14. So it's a different model, but we're going to take our model of service learning, and this next grant is going to be STEM-based, so science, technology, engineering, and math. And the whole idea is early intervention and higher levels of engagement in the STEM fields to try and raise aspirations for students to pursue STEM-based careers. So it's slightly different, but it's still going to use service learning. And some of our performance measures, rather than being simply about engagement, which they are now, are going to be about academic performance and engagement. So it's a little bit different, but using some similar vehicles like service learning to do it, as well as design challenges, STEM-based design challenges. So we intend to still have a big AmeriCorps presence at the real school. We intend to offer it to other RSU14 schools at no charge, which is unlike any other district that will actually charge for our members to cover some administrative costs of running the grant. And then will likely be Biddeford High School, Old Orchard Beach High School, and perhaps South Portland High School as well. They've all indicated that they're interested. So
That's excellent.
Wow.
that's,
Well, while we have him standing up there, does anybody have anything?
no, that's a way.
Do you know when you're going to find out about that one?
We find out in May.
Okay.
But like all AmeriCorps grants, they tell the grantees, behave as if you're going to get it, because it's too late once you find out that you get it to recruit and set up all the structures that you need. So we are moving forward and setting up the structures that we need to have in place and the levels of personnel that we need in place to do it. And last time we went through this, we were the highest scoring grant in the state, so we come in with pretty strong proposals. And this proposal, I think, was every bit as good as our last proposal. So we have our fingers crossed.
Great.
Well, that's great. I mean, I really want to compliment you. AmeriCorps has really been a wonderful addition to RSU14 and to the real school. I know you've been at the real school for a while now. And we are very grateful and we're very thankful because all students need a mentor, you know, and when we have the opportunity to be able to put the folks in place that are able to do that to the students, it's a win-win for everybody. And so, again, you have our thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. And Donna. Okay. Next on the agenda is a motion to call a public hearing. Just a little bit of explanation. Talked about this the last time. It was for two motions, one for the public hearing and one for the vote. This one is for the public hearing, and Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, for the feeling was that if there was any input that came back that would change what we were proposing, it would give us the chance to do that before it went to the vote.
Okay.
Right. So,
Sure. I move to call a public hearing on the proposed change in the cost-sharing formula for Regional School Unit 14 as recommended by the Board of Directors for 6:30 on Wednesday, February 11th, 2015 at the Wyndham High School Auditorium, and to approve the notices of public hearing in the form presented to this meeting.
okay, we have a first and a second. Any comments from the board? And I'll give just a brief thing on this before there are any. The form that went around earlier that we signed is the notice of public hearing that they're discussing here, so everybody's aware of that. And the date for the second meeting is March 18th, will be March 18th. Does anybody have anything else they want to bring up? Okay, seeing none, we will take the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Moving on to policies.
I move to approve the first reading and waive the second reading of the revised tobacco use and possession policy, file code ADC.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. Kate is not here. Do you want to give a brief? Or
Yep. This was just, as you all received her email, it was just a slight change that had to be made to the tobacco use and possession policy. It's really just a sentence that was added to cover e-cigarettes and such paraphernalia. As we learned at the high school luncheon, became an issue. So that's why we are fast-tracking and waiving the second reading, because we need to get that on the books ASAP.
Okay. All righty. Anything else? Okay. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the first reading and waive the second reading of the revised tobacco use and possession policy administrative procedure, file code ADC-R.
Second. Any comments?
Is that the same thing, just adding the language?
It's a regulation. Whenever you see the -R, it's just the regulation
Right,
of
but
the
that's what
policy.
it is, just-
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay. All set? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, moving on to, I will take a motion to vote on the program of studies that Mr. Howell presented to us at the last meeting.
I move to approve the Wyndham High School Program of Studies for the 2015-16 school year.
I wasn't here.
Any questions?
It's not what, that's not what
I'm
my...
going to abstain, just only because I wasn't here to hear it, so I have no idea what he's talking about.
Can I just ask a question? What Diana said is not what it says here. It says motion to vote on, and you said motion to approve, so I'm just not sure what we're actually doing here.
Oh,
Are we
I'm
doing a
sorry
vote
if I
to
said
vote
approve.
on?
It was a vote.
Okay.
It wasn't approved. I'm sorry, it was to vote on.
So I don't understand what that
The
means.
changes.
I don't understand what the motion to vote on the high school program of study means. I guess I'm just confused by the motion.
Probably should have said as presented at,
Yeah, or
yeah. So we should change the wording on that.
I think so, because I don't understand what this really means.
That's why I read it the way it should have, I know.
Right.
So we
So do
were
we have to
actually
make a-
voting,
do we
the
have to
motion
make a-
should read, right, make a friendly amendment to change the motion to vote on the approval of Wyndham High School's
For the
programs.
changes or additions?
How about just to approve Wyndham High School's program of studies?
Yes. So just take vote out
Right.
and put in approve.
Okay. Is that a friendly amendment that we just have
We
to
have to read a
officially?
second.
I second that friendly amendment.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment?
Okay.
It is unanimous. So we go back to the original motion as amended. So I'll make that motion, that we approve the motion as amended.
Okay.
I just need a second.
Second?
Okay. All those in favor? Eric, feel free to
I'm just going to
get
abstain.
a hold of next time you
I'm
see
sure it's fine, I just,
Mr. Howell,
because I
just
didn't
to
hear
know
it.
what it was. It should be in your
Packet.
email,
Yeah, okay.
the last meeting. Okay, saying that, I will now take a motion to go into executive session.
I move to approve going into executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation annual review pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056A and not returning to special meeting.
Second.
A first and a second. All those in favor? It is unanimous. We will not be returning.
Of what?
However, we're never leaving.